To govern AI well, you have to know exactly what can go wrong. This module is the risk landscape, the concrete harms AI can cause, the real cases where it has, and who ends up paying for it. Let's be clear about the spirit of this. We don't govern AI because AI is bad, its benefits in speed, scale, and insight are enormous and real. We govern it because its harms are also real, also specific, and very often invisible until after they've happened. Governance is simply the discipline that lets you keep the upside without absorbing the downside. So everything in this module is not fear-mongering, it's the concrete list of failure modes that good governance is designed to prevent. Know the harms, and the controls in later modules will make sense. Let's organize the risk into a map. There are at least 9 families of AI harm: bias and discrimination, privacy, security, safety and reliability, opacity, the black box problem, misinformation and deepfakes, intellectual property and copyright, broader societal, labor, and environmental harms, and concentration of power. We'll walk through each. And here's the thing to keep in mind: real-world failures are almost never just one of these. They're combinations: a biased model that's also opaque, trained on data that also breaches privacy. That's why governance has to be comprehensive rather than picking off one risk at a time. Let's start with the signature AI risk: bias and discrimination. Here's the mechanism. You train a model on historical data, and that data reflects the inequities of the past. The model learns those patterns. Then it reproduces them, and crucially, it scales them, applying them to thousands of consequential decisions about real people. The classic example: in 2018, Amazon scrapped an experimental hiring tool after discovering it had taught itself to penalize resumes that contained the word women's, like women's chess club captain. Nobody programmed it to discriminate. It learned the bias from historical hiring data. That's the lesson: AI doesn't invent bias, it learns it from us, and then applies it at scale, behind a comforting veneer of mathematical objectivity. Next, privacy, and AI threatens it at 3 distinct points. First, the input: models are often trained on personal data without a clear lawful basis or consent. Second, the model itself: large models can memorize and then leak the personal data they were trained on. And third, inference: AI can deduce sensitive things about you that you never disclosed, your health, your sexuality, your politics, just from patterns in ordinary data. Facial recognition companies have faced regulatory action around the world for scraping billions of photos from the internet without anyone's consent. Think of AI as a privacy amplifier: it ingests data, it remembers data, and it infers far beyond what it was given. AI also opens up security threats that traditional IT security never had to defend against. Data poisoning: an attacker corrupts the training data so the model learns something harmful. Model theft or extraction: stealing the model itself, which may be worth millions. Adversarial inputs: specially crafted inputs designed to fool the model into a wrong answer. Prompt injection: hijacking a generative AI by smuggling malicious instructions into its input. We covered this in depth if you've seen our prompt engineering course. And data leakage: secrets or personal data exposed through prompts and outputs. The takeaway is simple: AI adds new attack surfaces, so your security team and your AI governance function have to work together, not in separate silos. Safety and reliability. Generative AI has a particular failure mode called hallucination. It will state things that are simply false, with complete, fluent confidence. And all models suffer from errors and drift. They degrade as the world changes around them, so a model that was accurate last year may be quietly wrong today. Here's a real and important case. In 2024, a tribunal held an airline liable for incorrect information that its own customer service chatbot gave a passenger. The airline argued the chatbot was responsible for itself. The tribunal disagreed. And that's the governance principle in one sentence: confident does not mean correct, and the organization owns the output, no matter which system produced it. Opacity, the black box problem. Many of the most powerful AI models can't easily explain how they reached a decision. The loan is denied, the candidate is rejected, and when someone asks why, the box stays shut. This collides with 2 things at once. It collides with people's rights. In many contexts, there's a legal right to a meaningful explanation of an automated decision. And it collides with basic accountability you cannot stand behind, audit, or correct a decision you can't explain. So opacity isn't just a technical inconvenience. It's a governance and a rights problem, and explainability is a recurring theme we'll keep returning to. Generative AI has driven the cost of convincing falsehood down to almost nothing, and that plays out across a spectrum. At one end, plausible nonsense, hallucinated facts that read as authoritative. In the middle, synthetic media, deepfaked voices and video of real people. At the far end, targeted manipulation, persuasion personalized and deployed at scale. Here's how serious this gets. In 2024, a finance employee was tricked into transferring around $25 million after joining a video call with what looked like his colleagues, every one of them a deepfake. So this isn't an abstract information quality issue. It's fraud risk, it's reputational risk, and at the societal level, it's a risk to democracy and public trust. Intellectual property is one of the most unsettled areas, and it cuts both ways. On the input side, was the training data lawfully used? There are major ongoing lawsuits around the world over models trained on copyrighted text, images, and code. On the output side, who owns AI-generated content, and can that output itself infringe someone else's copyright? Courts in multiple countries are still deciding these questions as we speak. For a governance professional, the practical defense is provenance, documenting where your training data came from and what rights you have to it, so that when the legal picture clarifies, you're not exposed. Now let's widen the lens, because some AI harms don't land on one individual, they land on society. Societal harms, erosion of public trust, filter bubbles, inequality that becomes automated and entrenched. Labor harms, job displacement, and the quieter problem of dekilling. Environmental harms, training and running large models consumes significant energy and water, with a real carbon footprint. And concentration of power, the capability to build frontier AI is concentrating in a small number of very large players. These broader harms are the part of the risk picture organizations most often overlook, precisely because no single complainant shows up at the door. But regulators and the public increasingly do care. Let's connect every one of these risks to who actually bears them, because it travels in two directions. First, harm lands on individuals. Someone is wrongfully denied a job, a loan, a benefit, or even their freedom. Someone's privacy is stripped, someone is manipulated. Then it rebounds onto the organization, fines, lawsuits, reputational damage, systems pulled from production. Consider a real and sobering case. A government's automated fraud detection system wrongly accused thousands of families of fraud, forced them to repay benefits they were entitled to, and contributed to a national political scandal. Real families harmed first, then enormous institutional fallout. Every abstract risk on our list is, somewhere, a person harmed and an organization exposed. Let's bring this home to Helios and its hiring tool. Put it on a risk table and watch how many harmed families it touches at once. Bias, it could screen out qualified women or older candidates. Privacy, it might infer protected traits from a CV. Opacity, it may be unable to explain a rejection to the candidate or to a regulator. Safety, it could rank people on some spurious correlation that has nothing to do with job performance. And legally, it exposes Helios to a discrimination claim, to high-risk obligations under the EU AI Act, and to bias audit requirements under laws like New York City's. One system, most of the harmed families simultaneously. That concentration is exactly why this use case is classified high risk and exactly why we'll spend the rest of the course governing it. To recap, 9 families of harm: bias, privacy, security, safety, opacity, misinformation, intellectual property, societal and environmental harms, and concentration of power. Real, documented incidents prove these are not theoretical. Harm lands on people first and rebounds onto the organization second. And Helios's hiring tool hits several families at once. Now we know what we're governing against. Next, in Module 3, we turn to what we're governing toward: the principles of trustworthy AI.